Islam Makhachev versus Alexander Volkanovski seems to be in the works after Makhachev wins the belt against Charles Oliveira. He called out Volkanovski. I'm going to give you guys my early prediction for that fight. We'll also talk a bit about the betting odds, which have been dropped. They're really wide. I'll give you guys a hint on that. Also, we'll talk about what I think could be next for Charles Oliveira after a devastating defeat. Ultimately, he's still a top guy in the lightweight division. Smash the like button, guys. If you're new, subscribe, and let's preview the matchup between Makhachev and Volkanovski. Now, obviously, you see the height difference. Makhachev, he's got 4 inches on Volk. That's why he said the short guy. Let me call out Volkanovski, the short guy. It was an epic call out. I'll be honest. Makhachev has like some awkward charisma that has made me a fan, especially throughout that UFC 280 fight week. I gotta say, I like Islam Makhachev a lot. I picked him to win that fight. I'll tell you straight out, I'm picking him to beat Alexander Volkanovski too. I'm one of the people that thinks Volkanovski is an all-time great already. His status at featherweight, it seems like he has greatest featherweight of all time nearly wrapped. I would say maybe one more title defense there, but he's got wins over Aldo and 3 wins over Max Holloway, 2 former champions. The only fighter that he doesn't have a win over that held that featherweight belt in the UFC, Conor McGregor. Maybe sometime in the future we see that fight. Regardless of me considering Volk one of the GOATs, I feel like Makhachev is going to be too much for him. The wrestling ability that Islam has, I think, is going to crack the defense of Volkanovski. I got to respect Volk's grappling defense. He has pretty good takedown defense. He gets back up to his feet well. Super good submission defense. I mean, Brian Ortega nearly had 2 subs, and Volk did everything to fight out of them. The difference is Makhachev's wrestling is on another level. He's the bigger guy. Of course, Volkanovski looked good weighing in at 155, and especially in the face-off post-fight with Makhachev, Volk looked like a house. He was wide as hell. He was like wider than Michael Chandler wide. He's going to need that width because he's 5'6", fighting up a weight class at 155 pounds. He's not tall for 145. Makhachev's southpaw stance too. I think that's going to be an interesting factor with this fight. I do think stand-up wise, I'd say Volkanovski is the better technical striker, but I feel like Makhachev, he's sneaky good on the feet. He has pretty decent combinations, still has moments of being just a little bit awkward, but ultimately he found the target really well against Oliveira, dropped him, and was the only guy willing to follow him up on the floor. Volkanovski, more that tight kickboxing style. He really does chop at the low kicks well. I feel like he'll have a little bit of trouble closing that gap on Makhachev. I do think being as short as Volk is, this is going to help him when Makhachev is looking to shoot takedowns. Like if Makhachev is looking to blast double leg him, I don't think he's going to fall to his back easily. This is Volkanovski. You look at Oliveira, anytime Makhachev shooting, for the most part, there was takedowns that were stopped. But a lot of the time, Makhachev was getting fairly easy takedowns off on Charlie O. He's not going to get that same result with Volkanovski. I think he's going to have to work takedowns against the cage. I don't think Volk is going to have the sting to put a Makhachev to sleep, but I will say I'm expecting the power of Volkanovski to improve up a weight class and fighting Makhachev at 155. Now, if you look at the resume of Volkanovski, I mean, it's world class. Beats Max Holloway in a destruction. He won every round clearly, and the fight wasn't close. Stopped the Korean Zombie before that. And then he had a really competitive fight, though, against Brian Ortega. That Ortega fight, it proves Volk's not going to tap. But I really think Islam Makhachev is going to be able to strangle him. I feel like he's going to put him in an arm triangle. If I go like Mystic Mac pick, I'm saying 3rd round arm triangle. I feel like Volkanovski, just because of the shortness, the stocky stature, and the style matchup, might be a little bit more difficult than even Charles Oliveira was. I do think he can go a bit longer. Volkanovski is going to be looking to win the fight, so he's going to be attacking, looking to open up and throw shots. He's not just going to be like Thiago Moises, kind of just staying away from Makhachev as much as he can to last in that fight. And I mean, he went 4 rounds. That's a feat, I guess. For somebody that went long with Makhachev, Thiago Moises, but he didn't engage with Makhachev. And I'll be honest, I think Makhachev has gotten a good amount better even since that fight. Volkanovski will engage. He's going to let his punches go. He's going to attack with kicks. I think that Makhachev has a bit of success with the stand-up game. I do think it's competitive on the feet, but I would kind of give that technical edge just by a smidge to Volk, but the range to Makhachev could be a factor. Granted, length of the arms, weird, right? Volkanovski's got an inch reach advantage. I don't think that will necessarily matter in this fight. I think Makhachev will be able to get takedowns against the cage. When he's on top of Volkanovski, I do think it's going to be hard for Volk to shake him off. I can see Makhachev controlling top position, peppering away at some ground and pound, popping him with shots, wearing on him. It goes around, it goes another round. And I think 3rd round, I'm going to say Makhachev arm triangle. I'm going to say he uses the same submission he did to Charles Oliveira. Difference is Volk does not tap. He goes unconscious, and Makhachev gets like a brutal finish win over one of the GOATs, and I think the featherweight GOAT, or at least on the way to be, Alexander Volkanovski. Makhachev, people compare him to Khabib, but let's note something. Makhachev has striking levels above Khabib Nurmagomedov. Of course, the grappling ability, I still kind of favorite Khabib's side. I think Khabib has the better takedowns, and I think he's got the better top pressure, but doesn't matter. Makhachev still has incredible takedowns and top pressure, enough so to submit a beast in Alexander Volkanovski. So I'd ride Makhachev for the win. I think the momentum huge coming off this title win. They want to go to Australia and fight. They want to stay active. They don't want to have a Khabib run where he's only fighting once a year. Makhachev, he wants to be fighting everybody and often, and I think there's a good chance that Makhachev's legacy as light heavyweight champ could pass even a Khabib Nurmagomedov. I actually think that's what Khabib wants for Makhachev. I'm picking Makhachev here. The lines for this fight, early drop, -400 Islam Makhachev to +300 Alexander Volkanovski. I do think Makhachev, very confident pick. I will consider him like near lock level because he's definitely going to beat Volkanovski here. But Volk is still the biggest fight ever for Makhachev. I think the hardest stylistic matchup. But Makhachev will find a way. And I think he finds a way to get that submission. He's going to win. He beats Volkanovski. And I really feel like Islam Makhachev is on that all-time great status. And then, like, lying in the horizon is going to be a Charles Oliveira. Maybe it's a Beneil Dariush. Maybe it's a Rafael Adaman Fiziev. There's guys that are coming up that intrigue me as far as challenging Makhachev in the future. One that we specifically have to talk about is Charles "Do Bronx" Oliveira, the last foe and sad victim to Islam Makhachev's brutal skill set, because he proved a lot in that fight. Oliveira's still top class as far as the lightweight division goes. It's just because Makhachev's willing to follow him up. The vast majority of guys won't follow Charles Oliveira to the ground. But you want to know someone who I think could also give Charles Oliveira a lot of problems? Is Benny Dariush. I've doubted Beneil for a long time. I picked Mateusz Gamrot to beat him. I was damn wrong. And Beneil, straight up, apology from me to you. Because I like Beneil Dariush's style. He's good. And I've doubted him time and time again. And he proves me wrong each one of those times. I think that Beneil Dariush could actually be a kryptonite style to Charles Oliveira. Why? Southpaw stance, mean left hook. Mean left straight even. Mean left hook, mean left straight, mean left hand, mean left overhand. What is Charles Oliveira's weakness, I think? It's like those left overhands can land on him. Granted, he still got touched by a hook in this fight, but southpaws seem to be a bit of a striking kryptonite for Charles Oliveira. And then you match Beneil Dariush's grappling. I don't think Oliveira is going to be able to get on top of him. And if he does get on top, I think that Dariush finds a way to scramble and get back up to his feet. I think Dariush is the better wrestler in that fight. Guys, am I picking Beneil Dariush to beat Charles Oliveira? I guess I'm not officially picking him, but I'm telling you guys, if Beneil Dariush and Charles Oliveira fight, there's a possibility that Charles Oliveira loses because Beneil stylistically is a really hard matchup. Now, because my fear of Oliveira losing, I don't want to match him up against Beneil. Let's skip Beneil for now. Let's give him Fiziev. I think that's an incredibly difficult matchup, but again, it will be a guy who won't follow him to the floor. Fiziev is not going to go on the ground with Oliveira. I think there's a good shot that Oliveira could lock up a sub in that fight. The reason the UFC would skip that Fiziev fight is if Oliveira beats him, it kills the prospect in Fiziev, who's really on the rise and I think has a ton of momentum and is maybe angling towards a Gaethje fight, but he just recently called out Oliveira, so I don't hate the idea of Fiziev in Brazil versus Oliveira. I think stylistically, that's a better matchup for Charles Oliveira. Risk is if Oliveira wins, it kills a prospect on the rise. But ultimately, if Fiziev wins, it ends that Oliveira title shot hopes. Like, is Oliveira 1 win away or 2 wins away from another title shot? That's something that I'm wondering too. If he had the belt, maybe it would be 1 win away, but because it's vacant, they could very well say he needs 2 fights to get it back. I don't hate the idea of if Oliveira wins 1 fight, either against Fiziev or Dariush, you give him the title shot. I think beating Dariush is more of a stamp like, yes, bring him back, give him another shot against Makhachev. Beating Fiziev, it's like, what is going to change here? He beats another guy that's really good at striking, that's kind of scared to follow him up to the floor. The styles make the fights. Outside of Beneil Dariush, though, I think that Charles Oliveira is the top guy. I think he'd beat Michael Chandler in a rematch. I think he'd beat Gaethje again, Poirier again. Like, I'm actually certain he'd win all those fights. Beneil Dariush is the trickiest matchup for him. Him and Beneil makes a ton of sense as far as matching up guys that are like really at that tip top. If they're looking to, I guess, take a chance with Fiziev, or maybe also take a chance to kill the Charles Oliveira contendership, you throw him Fiziev. But I kind of feel like Oliveira beats Fiziev. I'd pick him over Fiziev. With Dariush, man, my prediction is cloudy. Like, I kind of see the path for Oliveira. Like, I could see him hurting Dariush on the feet. Dariush is, you know, not the iron chin. He's not chinny, but he's not iron. He can get hurt. But I also see Dariush hurting Oliveira. I'll be honest, man. If Dariush was sitting at like plus 200, I'd tell you guys throw money down on the dog in Dariush. Fiziev, even if he's plus 200, I'm not interested in that dog attack because I just feel as though the fight could go similar to a Gaethje matchup. But ultimately, I feel like Fiziev would land clean strikes and not gas as easily as a Justin Gaethje. And he's not as easily hittable. Where my concern would be is then Oliveira somehow working towards that back, looking for takedowns, putting him against the cage, even pulling guard. I'm not confident in Fiziev's ability there. And I'll tell you straight, his gas tank against Dos Anjos was almost on E at the very end of that fight, and he lands the knockout punch. I'd pick for sure Oliveira over Fiziev. But I'm cloudy, man. I would lean the bet of Dariush at least over Charles Oliveira. I think either one of those two matchups makes a lot of sense for him. I would favor realistically that they give it to Dariush. But I don't know if he wants that quick turnaround to go fight in Brazil right away. Fiziev is already seeming adamant that he's down as fuck for that fight. A lot of matchups that make sense. The lightweight division landscape is so interesting to me. I think we got some great fights. Who dethrones Islam Makhachev? I'm not looking at any name that I'm thinking has a real shot. Benny Dariush stylistically is the most intriguing fight because he's a southpaw too and he can grapple his ass off. Fiziev, I don't think has the grappling defense. He's not going to lose to a Poirier. I think he chokes out Poirier. He'll beat a Michael Chandler, even though that fight could be pretty cool. Islam Makhachev, I see him defending that belt at least 3 times. I think he's going to be a long reigning champion. Interesting. Early predictions and leans. Overall, UFC 280, more than delivered. I loved every moment of that card. It was an amazing night. It was a great live stream. It was a lot of fun. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. What matchup do you like for Charles Oliveira next? Am I crazy saying that Beneil Dariush might beat him? Or do you agree? You see, there's a path to victory for Beneil in that fight. Or do you like the Fiziev matchup better? And maybe you even think Fiziev is that guy to dethrone Islam Makhachev. Let me know in the comments. Also give your prediction for Makhachev versus Volkanovski. Much love, my people. And I will see you all in the next one. Peace, everyone.